The religious usually hide from legitimate debate or selectively engage, but only when it looks like they can win. No one is better at this than William Lane Craig, and he thinks that he can beat atheists. Sure, but only because he doesn't really engage with atheist ideas. So let's watch him explain how to debate an atheist by not actually debating an atheist. Coming up next. Now, I've never been a fan of William Lane Craig. He's a pompous ass that debates, but only when it benefits him, and only when he deigns to lower himself from his holy tower to talk to the non-religious. But he never has anything intelligent to say because he, like all apologists, aren't really there to defend their views. They are there to pander to a largely religious audience. You know, the people who are paying him to be there. So they can run out in the foyer and buy his books. Because this isn't about truth. This is about money, just like everything else. So, away we go. Sorry, what is this intellectual side of Christianity that you speak of? Because I've never seen it. I've seen people claiming to be intellectual, but never actually using their intellect for anything worthwhile. Because if you're going to use your intellect, the first thing you need to do is do away with faith. Faith is not intelligent. Intelligence is using things like evidence and reason and critical thinking to logically and rationally evaluate concepts that you're using in your arguments. No theist does that. Not even William Lane Craig. Maybe especially not William Lane Craig.
One of the things that you are most famous for is your debates with atheists. And these aren't just atheists off the street, these are philosophers.
Yes.
Who are supposedly familiar with the literature and your work.
You have to remember that Craig refuses to debate anyone without a PhD. And the people he's going after are, as they said, philosophers, not scientists, not people who are well educated in the facts and concerned with reality, but people who are in the ideas game, just like Craig is. That keeps these debates from getting too intellectual and concerned with the facts. Instead, it's just two people building syllogisms and throwing claims at each other. That's really all Craig can do. He doesn't have the training or the intellectual acumen to do anything else. But as I've said many times before, you simply can't philosophize anything into existence. And because all of this religious nonsense hinges on a practical understanding of reality, after all of these claims are about things that must exist in reality, these debates don't actually mean anything. It's a distraction, not a discussion. Craig and his ilk have nothing intelligent to bring to the table.
In fact, I routinely turn down debates with atheists who are popularizers, who want to have the spotlight and achieve a reputation for their opposition to Christianity, but frankly, who haven't done the hard work of getting a degree and doing serious scholarship. I don't give these people a platform. The people that I debate are the top academic scholars at secular universities who are atheists and agnostics.
And not, actual scientists. We know. Because if you had to debate someone with any scientific credibility, you just sit there and stammer and look like the fool that you are. The only place these religious questions are going to be answered is in the lab, not on the stage. It's not going to be put to bed with religious philosophical arguments. But that's really all the religious are left with, isn't it? Because every time they make claims about reality that are testable, their claims are invariably proven false. They cannot stand up to any kind of scientific rigor. They know that. So now they just noodle their navels and pretend that's got to be just as accurate as taking detailed measurements of objectively verifiable reality. Wow, are they wrong?
And is the reason that you do this because you don't want to give, basically you don't want to, you said something that was interesting, that these people, some of them just want to forward their own, I don't know, I want to call it a ministry. They want to evangelize for atheism, and maybe the reason that you don't do this is because you don't want to give them a platform.
It's funny because Craig is doing the exact same thing. He just doesn't want to admit it. He's out there evangelizing his own beliefs, his own entirely emotionally held beliefs, and he's using these debates to both bring attention to his cause and to make a lot of money. His net worth, last I knew, was a couple of $1 million. He's not a poor man doing this to bring light into the world of darkness. He's doing it for a paycheck. Now, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm just pointing out that he has a very distinct and easily demonstrable financial motive for his work. Just like Frank Turek does. Just like pretty much all apologists do. They're passing the collection plate and they're expecting to get well paid. Then they play this game where they're pretending they're not. It's kind of funny, that.
That's part of it. Some of these people are very eager to have the
notch
spotlight and be the big man, the big anti-Christian figure. They want to be Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens or someone like that. And I say you've got to earn that kind of stature. And I'm not going to just give it to them.
Because you've got a big head and you think they're all beneath you. Because that's exactly what it looks like to everyone who's ever heard you blather on. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make whatever choices you decide. That's entirely up to you. If you only want to debate dog catchers from Poughkeepsie, New York, hey, that's entirely your choice. It's just your attitude that pisses people off. Like, you think you're the gold standard, that people have to earn the right for you to deign to pay any attention to them. No, I think you're just scared. You and a lot of other apologists are the same way, as we've seen. Carefully pick and choose your battles, picking only the ones that you think you can win, or more accurately, that you think you can spin things in your favor when the debate is over, so that people will keep paying you. That's really what this is all about.
On the other hand, I have to say also very candidly that in the few cases in which I have acquiesced and debated such a person because there was no one else available, I've usually regretted it because the level of the conversation is so low that it's just awful. It's debating people who don't even understand the issues, much less are capable of giving good arguments in favor of their view or good objections to mine.
I'd argue that you don't understand the issues, though, because you're not really doing this to get to the bottom of the question. You're not doing it to discover what the reality actually is. You're not interested in that. It just doesn't matter to you. Like every other apologist out there, you are doing this to push your own religious agenda. You don't care about the truth. You care only about supporting a preconceived notion to which you are emotionally attached and which, again, makes you a lot of money. It's why you're not conversant in the science, because the science is where it's all at, and if you tried to debate an actual scientist, he'd stomp you into the ground. And I know Craig isn't a scientist, but even if you took the best Christian apologist scientist on the planet, if there is such a thing, they'd still lose. They've got nothing to present.
And so they have generally been very unprofitable.
Yeah, unprofitable. Interesting choice of words. Nice to know that you're at least being kind of honest there. It's all about the money.
There's a few people that come to mind that, as you were talking, people that you've debated that come to mind. But going back to my point earlier was that you've debated these people, and in most cases, the vast majority of cases, people think that you've won these debates.
Mm-hmm.
According to who? Because if you only ask people who have a vested interest in seeing the religious side win, then obviously they're going to say that the religious side won. It's why campus religious groups tend to pack the audience in debates like this. Lots of people paying to see the apologist fight, and of course, the apologist always wins, even if nothing is ever demonstrated in the end. Because I used to watch a lot of these debates, and that's always what happens. Always, 100% of the time. It's the religious side making nothing but faith claims, relying on their pre-existing beliefs to make arguments that simply do not stand up in the real world, and often, usually in fact, avoiding the whole point of the debate in the first place because they've got nothing intelligent to say. Go watch any debate on Does God Exist? And you'll see exactly what I mean. The theist never has an intelligent presentation on that front. It's just a foregone conclusion. They aren't asking, does God exist? They are starting from the presupposition that because God exists, and then going on from there. That's how these debates work. It's all a complete waste of time. And that's why I just don't bother anymore.
And the question that I have for you is, what does your preparation look like? I know that you do very intensive study on their arguments and their beliefs and their background, but what does your preparation for the actual debate look like?
What I do is I first of all read the work of my opponent.
Right, because you're not trying to prepare your side, you're trying to tear down theirs. And that's very telling. Your arguments do not stand up on the strength of your arguments. Your entire process relies on going after them so they can't go after you. This is a tactic that was popularized back in the 1980s by Dwayne Gish. You know, the Gish Gallop. Throw so much nonsense at your opponent that they won't have time to look at what you're saying. So you don't actually have to say anything. You put them on the defensive, and you just keep pounding them so that you never have to support your own side. It's a tried and true method among the religious. Or at least it was, until atheists started to realize what they were doing. And it was a wholly dishonest tactic. And then the atheists just didn't fall for it anymore. They stopped letting the religious run the show. They'd let the theist throw out the first volley, ignore it entirely, and then go whole hog back the other way. They'd slam the theist with criticisms over their beliefs and over their positions, and they just wouldn't let up. The Christian didn't know what hit them. It was pretty funny to watch back in the day. Craig's tactic is not, here's the best evidence that I can present for my position. No, it's, how can I attack you? Keep that in mind.
I read what he has written on these subjects, and then having done that, I prepare responses to the objections that he raises in his published work and will most likely raise in the debate.
Because you have nothing intelligent to say on your own. You're making it all about the other guy, not about your own beliefs. Your own beliefs don't stand up to any scrutiny, so you don't allow them to be challenged. But that's not what these debates are supposed to be about. It's about you putting your ideas head to head against the opposition and seeing which one comes out on top. And that's not how Craig debates. It can't be. He'd never survive that way. It's why most of these debates aren't about the subject matter. It's about the antics of the debaters. Nothing is ever decided because no one cares. People are there to just see the spectacle, not to come to any kind of rationally derived conclusion. And I've got better things to do with my life than watch that.
And I craft these responses so that they are very brief, very pithy, and can be quickly delivered, because in a debate situation, time is so precious that you're battling the clock all the time.
Quick, easily digestible attacks. Put your opponent on the defensive so they don't have time to address what you're supposed to be there to address in the first place. This is exactly why science doesn't operate through debate. Debate doesn't solve anything. It's a useless waste of effort that leaves all of the questions on the table because no one wants to have to defend their side. He's just proving my point.
Do you memorize these responses? Do you memorize them, or is it?
I typically don't memorize them. I prepare what are called briefs, like a legal brief, and then I file these briefs. And when the opponent gets up and he raises, say, the problem of evil, I just reach into my notebook and pull out that brief, and then I'm ready to speak from it. And so the briefs serve as notes for speaking.
Sure, you don't have to consider what your opponent is actually saying. You're just using a canned response to a standard question, and you're wasting time doing it. I have no idea what he'd do with an opponent who hasn't written extensively about religion. How would he handle it going into a debate blind? Oh, right, he wouldn't debate them if they didn't deliver all of this ammunition to him on a silver platter. That's why he does it that way.
And so in my rebuttal speech, I will simply go through a series of these briefs responding to his objections or his arguments for his point of view. I'll prepare both briefs, which are responses to his arguments for his view, and then briefs in answer to his anticipated objections to my view.
But it doesn't work that way very often, does it? Honestly, someone could just make an online Debate William Lane Craig site, take all of his briefs, and post them. He's got nothing else to say after all. Here are all of his canned answers to any question you could ask. No, they're not going to actually address any specific problems. They're certainly not going to respond to anything he's supposed to be defending. It's just the same thing over and over and over because that's the best he can do. Anything else? Yeah, that would be too much work, wouldn't it?
Is this what you would recommend to apologists who are getting into debating atheists? Is this the same kind of method you would suggest they use?
Yes, absolutely. For anyone who wants to have this kind of ministry, preparation is going to be critical. And then what they need to do as well is they need to get some experience. They need to take a course on debating techniques, and then they need to do mock debates before they ever go into a public debate. Otherwise, they risk losing and dishonoring the gospel.
In other words, learn how to scam people, because that's all these debates are. It's why it's not the proper format for any of this. It is literally a stage show. It isn't designed to get to the truth. It's performance art, and that does no one any good. Spectacle for the sake of spectacle doesn't answer any questions. It doesn't get us one bit closer to the facts. It relies only on the skill of the debaters and not on the ideas that they're supposed to be bringing to the table. Because in far too many cases, they're not really bringing anything. Those ideas, the ones they're supposed to have, they're really all that matters. I don't give a damn about William Lane Craig. I give a damn about whether Christianity is demonstrably true or not. I care if they have the evidence that they can present, objective, demonstrable, testable, and verifiable evidence that points to their claims being factually correct in the real world. I don't care about their fast talk. I don't care about how they spin a narrative. I care if what they are saying is actually true. And that's not what debates are designed to do. That's why they're such a waste of time.
So it's very important to have mock debates and practice these debating skills before you ever go onto a public platform.
Because otherwise, you just look like an idiot. But you still won't have accomplished anything. Really, this is why people like Craig don't impress me. He and really pretty much all of the standard apologists, they're just like motivational speakers. They'll tell you anything for a buck. It doesn't matter what's coming out of their mouths. It doesn't matter if it's real. It doesn't matter if it's defensible. It just matters that they have a smooth presentation and can make it seem like it's true, if you don't think about it very hard. It's why snake oil salesmen did so well. They don't have to prove anything. They just have to lie convincingly. And that's what Craig is doing. Lying convincingly. It's all any apologist is doing. They don't want to put themselves into a situation where they actually have to pony up any evidence for their claims. It's why they pick their battles so carefully, so they don't ever have to look bad. But in so doing, they just reveal themselves to be shysters. This is not about being a celebrity on stage. It's about producing convincing and objectively verifiable evidence that the things that you believe are actually true for all the world to see. And they can't do that. They know they can't do it. It's why they don't do it. And any time that anyone calls for them to do it, they run away. They make excuses because they know they'd fail. It would be great if someone would point out to Craig that his philosophical arguments are meaningless in proving that his God is actually real. But he just ignored them. He doesn't have to respond. I think he's terrified to respond. I'd love to see him and a scientist, a credible, real-world scientist, sit down, not in a timed debate format, but just on a stage, with a microphone, presenting evidence. No claims that you can't back up, no crib sheets, no researching the other guy beforehand, just you defending your side and the other guy defending theirs. All defense, no attack. Craig would flip out. He can't do that. It's not his shtick. But it would sure be funny as hell to watch him fail, wouldn't it? I might even pay to see it.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.